Hello and a very good morning to all News 9 viewers. I'm Neha Bhan. We continue to get you the latest from battleground Israel. Now today marks day 17 since Hamas carried out attacks on southern Israel, resulting in the loss of more than 1,400 lives and the kidnapping of over 200 Israeli citizens as hostages. Here's the latest update from day 17. Now, thwarted Israeli ground invasion near Khan Yunis. That's what Hamas has said, and the Israeli military has also said that one of its soldiers was killed by an anti-tank missile reportedly shot by the Hamas. Now here, Israel continues to pound Gaza. There are continuous airstrikes from the Israeli side. Meanwhile, death toll has touched 6,142 in Israel-Hamas War. French President Emmanuel Macron is all set to visit Israel. He will be visiting Israel on Tuesday. Now here 212 people are being held as hostages by Hamas. That's what the Israeli military has also confirmed, while the UN has said that humanitarian situation in Gaza is catastrophic. Do remember that over 3,000 people have lost their lives in Gaza, while over 13,000 people are injured. Gaza continues to face the wrath of Israel. In fact, this was after Hamas carried out an unprecedented attack in southern Israel on the 7th of October. If we have to quickly give you a recap of what exactly has been happening on day 17, there Israel's tank also mistakenly fires into Egypt. That's what, in fact, the Israeli army has stated. They've said that one of its tanks had accidentally fired and hit an Egyptian post, while the Egyptian military also maintained that the blast had caused minor injuries but refused to give the details. Now, Israel continues to pound Gaza. Airstrikes are continuing. Death toll has touched 6,142 in Israel-Hamas war as both sides have suffered casualties. That's, in fact, the latest that we're getting for all our viewers. Now, amid the ongoing Israel-Hamas war, the Israeli military accidentally fired and hit an Egyptian post. One of its tanks is reported to have mistakenly fired, inadvertently hitting an Egyptian post near the Gaza border, even as the Israeli Defense Forces continued to bombard the Gaza Strip. The Egyptian military said the blast caused minor injuries. Right on your screens, that's the IDF Twitter handle, which stated the Israeli Defense Forces expresses sorrow regarding the incident near the Karem Shalom area. The incident is being investigated and the details are under review. The IDF expresses sorrow regarding the incident. The Egyptian army stated that Israel had immediately expressed its regret over the unintentional incident, and an investigation in this regard is currently underway. Now, the Egyptian media, citing witnesses, also stated that Israeli strike would not disrupt the passage of aid to Gaza through the Rafah crossing, which opened on Saturday. Here's the latest update. Even though the Hamas and Israel war continues, the Israeli military is said to have accidentally fired and hit an Egyptian post. The Israeli military, in fact, is itself confirmed it and said that one of its tanks had accidentally fired and hit an Egyptian post, and also expressed sorrow regarding the incident. In a joint statement, the Israeli Defense Forces and the Israel Security Agency have said that IDF fighter jets took out Mohammad Katmash, who was the deputy head of Hamas's artillery unit in the Gaza Strip. He was responsible for coordinating artillery operations in the Central Brigade of Hamas in Gaza. Katmash also played a significant role in planning and carrying out rocket attacks on Israel in previous conflicts. Gatmash was responsible for fire and artillery management in the terror group's Central Camps Brigade and is said to have played a significant role in the planning and execution of the organization's fire plans against Israel in all rounds of fighting in the Gaza Strip. They're a significant blow to the terrorist organization Hamas. The Israeli Defense Forces and the Israel Security Forces have said that the IDF fighter jets have killed Mohammad Gatmash, who was the deputy head of Hamas's artillery unit in the Gaza Strip. He was responsible for coordinating and artillery operations in the Central Brigade of Hamas in Gaza and is said to have played a crucial role on in the 7th of October. That's when Hamas carried out a deadly attack on southern Israel. Gatmash is reportedly played a significant role in planning and carrying out rocket attacks on Israel in previous conflicts as well. Israel said its aircraft struck Hezbollah targets in Lebanon and that one of its soldiers was hit by an anti-tank missile in cross-border fighting that the Iran-backed group said killed 6 of its fighters. With the frontier region seeing its worst violence in years as Israel wages war against Gaza's Hamas terrorists, the Israeli military said it traded fire with Hezbollah in at least 4 different areas along the Lebanese border. The hostilities have forced residents on both sides to flee their homes. Israel's military says 7 soldiers have been killed since the 7th of October, while Hezbollah says 19 of its fighters in total have died, including the 6 recently. Now, the violence has also not spared the civilians and journalists. They have been killed in this war as well. The IDF has now carried out a strike against Hezbollah targets in Lebanon, and they stated that one of its soldiers was hit by an anti-tank missile in cross-border fighting that the Iran-backed group said killed 6 of its fighters. Now, with the frontier region seeing its worst violence in years, even though Israel wages war against Gaza's Hamas terrorists, the Israeli military said it traded fire with Hezbollah in at least 4 different areas along the Lebanese border. Hezbollah has already entered the ongoing war between Hamas and Israel. The hostilities have forced residents on both the sides to flee their homes. Tens of thousands of people have been displaced. Now, Israel's military has said that 7 of its soldiers were killed since the 7th of October. That's when Hamas carried out a deadly attack on southern Israel, killing over 1,400 people and taking over 200 people as hostages. Now, Israel has said that 7 of its soldiers have been killed since the 7th of October, while Hezbollah has said that 19 of its fighters, 19 of the terrorists in total have died, which includes the 6 Hezbollah fighters who were killed recently after the IDF carried out strikes on Hezbollah on the targets. In fact, here the violence also has killed civilians as well as journalists. Israel carried out the strikes on Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has issued a stern warning to Hezbollah, cautioning them about the potential consequences of going to war with Israel. He emphasized that such a conflict would bring immense devastation to both Hezbollah and Lebanon. Netanyahu also expressed concerns that Hezbollah's actions could escalate into a broader regional war, though he could not confirm whether Hezbollah would fully commit to such a war. Now, my colleague Manish Jha was at the Lebanese border. He gets us the latest on what's happening on that front. Let's take a look.
Right now, I am at Israel-Lebanon border, and this place is known as Kiryat Simona. This is one of the 42 places where the Israeli government has asked to vacate it. All the civilians who are staying here, who are living here, they have been asked to vacate it and go to some secure place, because the Hezbollah is continuously attacking on these areas. You can see the mountain, and top of the mountain, this is the Israeli post. From this location, continuously IDF attacking the opposite side, the Hezbollah. And the Hezbollah is also attacking this side, and most of the time, those rockets are coming near these areas. And that's why, for the security of these peoples, the government has asked them to vacate these locations, go to some safe place, and the peoples are going out. There are very few peoples here. Most of them have already evacuated, but some of them who are here, they are going out, so that these places will be used by the armed personals. Right now, I am moving around this area, and I have found lots of army vehicles and the military posts. All these are deployed here, and at the same time, you can see this area where I am standing right now, and mostly these areas are totally empty. No one is here. All the shops, markets are closed now, and the people who are here, they all are going out to find some safe places. So this is the location here where everyone is watching now.
Israel continued to pummel targets in Gaza as well as Hamas supporters in Lebanon and Syria. Medical sources in Gaza said more than 200 Palestinians were killed in Israeli airstrikes overnight in Gaza's Khan Yunis. This funeral was held for 7 family members killed in an airstrike that hit their home at dawn. Israel began its unrelenting airstrikes on Gaza, one of the most densely populated places on earth, after Hamas gunmen breached the border on the 7th of October.
The first convoy of trucks carrying humanitarian aid crossed into Gaza Saturday from the Egyptian border. It comes after 12 days of total siege of the Strip since the October 7th attack on southern Israel by Hamas militants, which killed 1,400 Israelis. But for many who have been displaced in the growing conflicts, 20 trucks are simply not enough for the enclave's 2.3 million people. Where is your humanity? We need to know what is being done, says this man, who is calling on Arab countries to send help. Before the outbreak of war, an average of about 450 aid trucks were arriving daily in Gaza. Since the October 7th attack, Israel has hammered Gaza with airstrikes. Here, in a crowded school in Gaza's south, Tahrir Tabash and her children are among hundreds of other families taking shelter from Israeli bombardment. She says that if her children hear so much as a chair being moved, they jump in fear.
Our children suffer a lot at night. They cry all night. They pee themselves without meaning to. And I don't have time to clean up after them, one after the other. The place is full. I can't take care of my children, clean for them, I can't. There is not even 1% of a good, healthy, and safe life for a child. There is no safety. If we don't die from war, we will die from epidemics and diseases.
More than 4,000 Palestinians have been killed, including hundreds of children, and 13,000 wounded in Gaza, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry. The United Nations says more than 1 million have been made homeless. There are no safe bomb shelters in Gaza, where over 50% of Palestinians live in poverty. In Egypt, Arab leaders condemned the siege of Gaza at a summit convened hastily to find a peace settlement. But the absence of Israel and senior U.S. officials at the meeting undermined any prospect for halting the escalating war.
When it was the 7th of October, that's when Hamas carried out a deadly attack against on southern Israel. And India, in fact, on Sunday has sent humanitarian aid to war-torn Gaza Strip, given the kind of devastation that has ensued in the Gaza region. Even as the conflict between Israel and Hamas continues to rage on, Air Force flight carrying nearly 6.5 tons of medical aid and 32 tons of disaster relief material have been sent to Palestine. According to the Ministry of External Affairs, the IAF flight C-17 departed for El Arish Airport in Egypt. The ministry said that the material included essential life-saving medicines, surgical items, tents, sleeping bags, tarpaulins, sanitary utilities and water purification tablets, among other necessary items. The items will be sent to Palestine via the Rafah border crossing between Egypt and Gaza. Remember, Rafah border crossing was opened on Saturday. That's when 20 trucks were allowed to cross over to Gaza, and in fact the Israeli side also ensured that Hamas terrorists are not using the aid which was being sent out to the people of Gaza. India's aid to Palestine comes 3 days after Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. Prime Minister Modi stated that India will continue to send humanitarian aid to Gaza while also expressing condolences for the loss of lives in the Strip. The Israel-Hamas conflict, which began on the 7th of October, has led to a massive humanitarian crisis in the Middle East. That's the External Affairs, Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson Arindam Bagchi, who also took to Twitter to confirm the same, and he stated that the IAF C-17 flight departed for Al Arish Airport in Egypt, and the flight is carrying essential life-saving medicines, surgical items, tents, sleeping bags, tarpaulins, sanitary utilities and water purification tablets, among other necessary items for Gazans. Israel finally allowed humanitarian aid in Gaza on Saturday after 12 days of siege. The aid flowed through the Rafah border crossing from Egypt, carrying food, water and medical supplies. The UN said aid convoys included life-saving supplies and would be distributed in South Gaza by the Palestinian Crescent. The US also said that 100 convoys would be needed every day in Gaza as aid. Israel did not allow any fuel to enter Gaza as Hamas can use that to make weapons. Meanwhile, President Joe Biden cheered for the arrival of aid in Gaza and said that he would keep working with all parties to ensure Rafah crossing remains open.
At the instruction of the government, aid was entering through the Rafah crossing carrying food, water and medicine that is for the population in the southern area of Gaza only. Fuel was not entered into Gaza.
Has allowed humanitarian aid to enter Gaza on Saturday after 12 days of siege. The biggest fear of the Israeli forces was that if the aid that was sent out to Gaza would be taken over by Hamas. That's something that Israel does not want, and they have also said that they are going to ensure that Hamas does not take over any of the aid that is being sent to the war-torn Gaza Strip. Do remember that hospitals in Gaza are running dangerously low on various life-saving medicines as well as other medical supplies. Now, Hamas has released 2 American hostages, a mother and a daughter, marking the first known hostage release in the conflict with Israel. Judith and Natalie Rana were kidnapped during Hamas's surprise attack on Israel on the 7th of October and were received at the border by Israeli forces. Take a look at this report.
The Islamist group Hamas has freed 2 American hostages, a mother and a daughter, the first known hostage release in the war between it and Israel. Israel's military spokesperson said Judith and Natalie Rana were kidnapped during Hamas's surprise attack on Israel on October 7th and that they were received on the border by Israeli forces. The International Committee of the Red Cross says it transported them through Gaza. The Hamas attacks in Israel killed 1,400 people. Around 200 were taken as hostages. Hamas says the mother and daughter were released for humanitarian reasons and, quote, to prove to the American people and the world that claims made by Biden and his fascist administration are false. They also say that the hostage release came from negotiations by the government of Qatar. This was U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken.
The Cairo summit hosted by Egypt failed to reach an agreement on how to contain the violence between Israel and Hamas. Arab leaders condemned the Israeli bombardment of Gaza, while mostly Western countries said civilians should be shielded. But with Israel and senior US officials absent, there was no consensus on how to resolve the conflict. The message the Arab world is hearing is loud and clear. King Abdullah II of Jordan stated in his remarks, adding, Palestinian lives matter less than Israeli ones. Our lives matter less than other lives. The application of international law is optional and human rights have boundaries. They stop at borders, they stop at races, they stop at religions. The European countries did not agree to sign the charter brought forward by Egypt, as it omitted out Israel's right of self-defense against Hamas. After hours of speeches, the gaping divide between the Western countries and Arab countries remained as pronounced as ever.
Including hundreds of children.
However, despite the lack of a summit declaration, it was clear even the Western countries agreed to a steady flow of humanitarian aid in Gaza, with many promising to increase the aid.
Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari said the deputy chief of Hamas's rocket force had been killed and that killing, quote, terrorists and seniors was their priority. In neighboring Syria, where Hamas's main backer Iran has a presence, Israeli missiles hit Damascus and Aleppo international airports. Concerns over the risk of a wider Middle East conflict increased on Sunday as the US dispatched more military assets to the region. That's also as Israel continued to pummel targets in Gaza, as well as Hamas supporters in Lebanon and Syria. Medical sources in Gaza said more than 200 Palestinians were killed in Israeli airstrikes overnight. In Gaza's Khan Yunis, this funeral was held for 7 family members killed in an airstrike that hit their home at dawn. Israel began its unrelenting airstrikes on Gaza, one of the most densely populated places on Earth, after Hamas gunmen breached the border on October the 7th. Their rampage killed 1,400 people, most of them civilians, and saw 212 hostages taken back to Gaza. The enclave's health ministry said on Saturday that Israel's retaliation had killed more than 4,000 Palestinians, including hundreds of children. Israel has amassed tanks and troops near Gaza's fenced border for a planned ground invasion and, according to an Israeli army spokesperson, intensified their bombardment overnight. Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari said the deputy chief of Hamas's rocket force had been killed and that killing, quote, terrorists and seniors was their priority. In neighboring Syria, where Hamas's main backer Iran has a presence, Israeli missiles hit Damascus and Aleppo international airports, according to Syrian state media. Israel also said it had bombed Iran-backed Hezbollah targets on Saturday. Hezbollah said 6 of its fighters were killed. Meanwhile, the US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has said Washington will send more military assets to the Middle East. It's a move in support of Israel and to strengthen the US defense posture in the region, following, quote, recent escalations by Iran and its proxy forces. Austin said a terminal high-altitude area defense system and additional Patriot defense missile system battalions would be sent.
and more troops put on standby. The US has already deployed significant naval power to the Middle East in recent weeks.
Well, that was to give our viewers a sense of what really has been happening on the Israel-Hamas front. Meanwhile, taking you back to the Cairo summit hosted by Egypt, where in fact the world leaders failed to reach an agreement on how to contain the violence between Israel and Hamas. The Arab leaders, beg your pardon, also they condemned the Israeli bombardment of Gaza, while mostly Western countries said civilians should be shielded. But with Israel and senior US officials absent, there was no consensus as to how to resolve the conflict.
We warn of any attempts to displace our people from Gaza, and we also warn of any attempts to expel Palestinians from their homes or displacing them from Jerusalem or the West Bank, because we will not accept displacement and we will remain steadfast on our land no matter the challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, we will not leave, we will not leave, we will not leave, and we will remain on our land. I can assure the world very clearly and honestly of the will of the Egyptian people that the solution to the Palestinian issue will not happen under any circumstance at the expense of Egypt ever. I invited you all here today so we can together come to an agreement on a roadmap that aims at ending the current humanitarian disaster in Gaza and to revive a path to peace through several fronts, starting with a guarantee of a safe, complete, fast and continuous flow of humanitarian assistance to Gaza that is immediately followed by negotiations for a ceasefire and quick negotiations leading to a two-state solution and the foundation of an independent Palestinian state.
Because even if our starting points were not perfectly the same, our interest is perfectly the same. That is, the interest of all the leaders sitting around this table that what is happening in Gaza does not become a much wider conflict. That it does not turn into a religious war and a clash of civilization, rendering in vain the efforts that have courageously been made in recent years to normalize relations.
There are innocent victims on both sides. There are civilians kept hostages, and no peace can be discussed until they are free. And there are civilians killed and wounded in horrible conditions, brutally assassinated in their homes in Israel, losing their lives in the destruction of the Al-Ahli hospital in Gaza. The position of Greece has been very clear from the beginning. Israel has a right of self-defense, but in accordance with international and humanitarian law. And I also want to be clear that collective punishment is prohibited by the laws of war. And these laws were designed to ensure that when war must be conducted, there are limits on what harm can be done to other human beings. We are ready to contribute to any peace initiative, and as a neighboring country, we hope that an immediate de-escalation can be attained and humanitarian aid can be provided to all civilians. The future that we want for this region, the future of sustainable peace, stability and prosperity can only be attained with the resumption of the peace process on the basis of a two-state solution. And if one thing should be clear to all of us is that no military intervention can replace a viable political solution.
Switching our focus to some other stories now, after Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau pulled out 41 diplomats from India on Friday and blamed the government for making it unbelievably difficult for millions of people's lives in India and in Canada, the External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has hit back and said that in return, the India invoked the provision of parity in Canada's diplomatic presence in the country in view of concerns over interference in New Delhi's affairs by Canada. The External Affairs Minister also said that India is likely to resume issuance of visas to Canadians if it sees progress in the safety of Indian diplomats in Canada. Listen in.
Finally, there's this whole issue of parity, that the size of, how many diplomats there are of one country versus how many diplomats there are of the other country. Parity is very much provided for by the Vienna Convention, which is the relevant international rule on this. But in our case, we invoke parity because we had concerns about continuous interference in our affairs by Canadian personnel. We haven't made much of that public. My sense is over a period of time, more stuff will come out and people will understand why we had the kind of discomfort with many of them which we did.
Now, his statement comes days after Canada announced the withdrawal of 41 diplomats from India. Their External Affairs Minister, S. Jaishankar, saying that India invoked diplomatic parity due to concerns over continuous interference in its internal affairs by Canada. The relationship between both countries deteriorated after Justin Trudeau quite callously made a wild allegation against India and alleged its hand in the killing of a Khalistani terrorist, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, and demanded that India should help Canada in its probe into the killing of the Khalistani terrorist. While India continued to demand for proof, Canada had none to offer. The Armed Forces of the Philippines recently released a footage showing Chinese vessels obstructing a Philippine boat attempting to deliver supplies in the disputed waters of the South China Sea. Now, this incident is part of an ongoing series of maritime clashes. In response, Manila strongly criticized China's dangerous blocking maneuvers, describing them as dangerous, irresponsible and illegal actions that infringe on Philippines' sovereignty and jurisdiction. This condemnation was expressed by Manila's task force for the West Philippine Sea. Now, China's Coast Guard on the other side stated that Philippine vessel had disregarded repeated warnings, crossed in front of the Chinese ship and deliberately incited the collision, shifting the blame. Meanwhile, Beijing has asserted sovereignty over a significant portion of the South China Sea, including parts within the exclusive economic zones of the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia, and of course Brunei as well. The Permanent Court of Arbitration ruled in 2016 that China's territorial claims had no legal foundation.
China and the Philippines traded accusations over a collision in disputed waters of the South China Sea on Sunday as Chinese vessels blocked Philippine boats supplying forces there. Armed forces of the Philippines released this video showing the Chinese vessel grazing the hull of the Philippines boat. The collision occurred during the Philippines' resupply mission to troops stationed on a rusted World War II-era transport ship used as an outpost on the shoal. China's Coast Guard said they were lawfully blocking the boat from transporting illegal construction materials to the warship. Manila responded by condemning in the strongest degree the dangerous blocking maneuvers of the Chinese vessel. The U.S. sided with the Philippines, offering support to its ally. In a statement on Sunday, the U.S. State Department said China's actions amounted to repeated harassment in the South China Sea and that they were dangerous and unlawful. Beijing claims sovereignty over almost the entire South China Sea, including parts of the exclusive economic zones of Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, and Vietnam. The Permanent Court of Arbitration in 2016 said China's claims had no legal basis.
Mallikarjun Kharge wrote a letter to Prime Minister Narendra Modi opposing the deployment of senior bureaucrats to showcase the achievements and schemes of government. In response to the letter, BJP National President JP Nadda said that it may be an alien concept to the grand old party, but public service delivery is the duty of a government. This came after Kharge took strong exception to a government order dated 18th of October, which stated that senior officers of ranks as high as Joint Secretary, Director and Deputy Secretary are to be deployed to all 765 districts of India. Nadda also said that it is baffling for him to see the Congress party having an issue with public servants reaching the grassroots. It appears there is another showdown all set to be witnessed by people, as Mallikarjun Kharge has now written a letter to Prime Minister opposing the deployment of senior bureaucrats to showcase the achievements and schemes of the government. Now, this letter JP has not gone down well with JP Nadda, the BJP National President, who has said that it may be an alien concept to the grand old party, the Congress party, but public service delivery is the duty of a government. JP Nadda has also called it baffling and said that it is quite surprising to see the Congress party having an issue with public servants reaching the grassroots. Now, it remains to be seen how Mallikarjun Kharge or any other senior party leader hits back at the strong statements made by the BJP National President JP Nadda. Now, the Russian-American journalist had her detention extended by 72 hours on Friday in a case where she is accused of violating Russia's laws on foreign agents. We have the latest for you.
Russian-American journalist Alsu Kamasheva has had her custody extended by 72 hours. The Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty journalist has been accused of violating Russia's law on foreign agents. The Prague-based journalist was detained and had her passport seized at the airport in June. She had entered Russia in May for a family emergency. According to court documents, Komasheva was fined just over $100 earlier this month for failing to register her US passport with Russian authorities. She was charged a week later with failure to register as a foreign agent, an offence that carries up to 5 years in prison. She is the second US journalist to be arrested and charged in Russia since the start of its war in Ukraine, which has sunk relations between Moscow and Washington to their lowest level in more than 60 years. In March, Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich was arrested on spying charges, which he denies. Speaking on Thursday, US spokesperson Matt Miller called the journalist's detention harassment and urged US citizens to return home. In response, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters there was no campaign to persecute US citizens. The media organization that Kamasheva works for is funded by the US Congress and designated by Russia as a foreign agent, meaning it gets foreign funding for activity deemed to be political. Radio Free Europe has called for Kamasheva's immediate release, calling her a, quote, highly respected colleague, devoted wife and dedicated mother to 2 children. No date has been set for a trial for either Gershkovich or Kamasheva. It is unclear whether Kamasheva might face further charges.
Now, a 16-year-old Iranian girl who fell into coma earlier this month following an alleged encounter with officers over violating the country's controversial hijab law is said to be brain dead. We have more for you.
Iranian state media on Sunday reported a teenage girl is brain dead after an alleged encounter with officers earlier this month over violating the country's hijab law. CCTV footage from Tehran's metro on October 1st shows an unconscious person being dragged out from the cabin. Iran has denied that 16-year-old Armida Garavan was hurt after a confrontation with officers enforcing the mandatory Islamic dress code. Rights groups have been concerned that Garavan might face the same fate as Mahsa Amini, whose death last September in the custody of morality police sparked nationwide anti-government protests. 2 journalists were handed long prison sentences on Sunday by an Iranian revolutionary court over their coverage of Amini's death, according to state media. Nilufar Hamidi and Elaha Mohammadi were sentenced to 13 and 12 years in prison, respectively. Their charges included collaboration with the U.S. government and acting against national security. Lawyers for the 2 journalists have rejected the charges.
Famous breakdancer George Kiminju, who is also known as Mazushi Africa, dreams of making it to the Olympics one day. He says the lack of support from the Kenyan government, which does not recognize it as a sport, is holding him and the community back.
In Nairobi, Kenya, breakdancing is taking off. Breakdancer Mazushi Africa was introduced to the art a decade ago and credits the dance for giving him direction.
For me, it was very appealing to the eye to see like some of the crazy moves these people are doing. And I remember at the time being like very interested, like I want to do this.
Mazushi Africa is now a pillar in Nairobi's breakdancing community. He says 10 years ago, little was known about breaking, which has since become recognized as an Olympic sport and will feature in the Paris 2024 Games. He now hosts workshops and events in hopes that more exposure will allow Kenya's breakdancers to make it to the Olympics one day. However, he says the challenges to pursuing this goal are many, and he attributes it to the lack of support from the Kenyan government.
You know, at the moment, breaking or breakdancing is in the Olympics. And, you know, that would have been a very nice spot, you know, for government to come in and start supporting the local breakdancing scene. But unfortunately, we do not have a dance sport federation, which is what is required in Kenya for you to get support from the National Olympic Committee. This was not a unique situation. There is actually, for all of Africa, only 8 countries have a federation out of 54.
Mazushi Africa has performed internationally, most recently in Taiwan, but he has to rely on sponsorships and donations to attend the competitions.
The art of breaking is yet to monetize, and so there is a lot of breakdancers who are really good at what they do, but they are yet to make an income or to get a revenue stream from breaking.
Still, the Kenyan breakdancing community is optimistic. Here's professional dancer Francis Mututri.
Now, since breaking has been recognized in the Olympics, now a lot of people have hope. For now, I can say breaking it's going somewhere. We're heading somewhere.
El Nino, which reduced rainfall in monsoon, will now impact winter as well. According to the World Meteorological Organization and the US Meteorological Agency, El Nino has an 85% chance of remaining active in the northern hemisphere until May 2024. Now, due to this effect, the sea surface temperature is currently 1.3 degrees higher than the average. Such an increase in sea temperature has been recorded for the first time since February-April 2016. Former Secretary of the Ministry of Earth Sciences and meteorologist Dr. Madhavan Nair Rajivan, quoting the European Centre for Medium-Range Weather Forecasts model, said that due to El Nino, there will not be much cold in the coming winter. The winter season will also be short, which means there will be fewer cold days. From November to February, the temperature will be above normal, so there is less scope for cold wave. Here, the Indian Meteorological Department has not yet released the forecast for the winter season. Well, get ready for an incredible celebration. The Festival of India, brought to you by TV9 Network, has lit up Major Dhyan Chand Stadium in Delhi. And guess what? Entry is absolutely free. The festivities started from October 10 at 10 a.m. This explosive event is your pre-Diwali extravaganza, offering a treasure trove of goods from India and around the world. Hungry? We've got you covered with over 100 food stalls serving up scrumptious dishes from various Indian states and international favorites. But it does not stop at food. You can shop your home appliances, stylish clothes, the latest gadgets, electronic goodies, furniture, two-wheelers and more, all at fantastic prices. And the fun does not end there. We're rolling out exhibitions from Italy, Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan, Thailand and other countries, plus live music to keep the festival vibes high. There'll be amazing programs showcasing the unique art and culture of different states, giving you a taste of Indian life in all its vibrant glory. So join us for the Festival of India, a vibrant blend of shopping, delicious treats and unforgettable experiences. It's a date you certainly won't want to miss.
बंगाल में नारी जाति शक्ति के लिए भी पूजित होते हैं और आपको पता होगा हमारे कंपनी ने अभी H&A वाओ एक वी ऑन बोर्ड वुमेन एक इनिशिएटिव लागू किया है। तो हम ये सोचते हैं एज एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हम लोग विमेन एम्पावरमेंट के बारे में बहुत सजग रहते हैं और इसीलिए दुर्गा पूजा इज़ अ सिम्बॉलिक फेस्टिविटी of celebrating women empowerment and the power of women empowerment. हम न्यूज़ चैनल है, न्यूज़ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, देश के सबसे बड़ा न्यूज़ नेटवर्क है, तो हम जो भी करते हैं उसमें हमारे दर्शकों के लिए कोई संदेशा रहता है। हम सिर्फ बिजनेस के लिए कुछ भी नहीं करते।
देखिए, दुर्गा पूजा शक्ति की आराधना का पर्व है। हम सबको शक्ति चाहिए, ताकत चाहिए। हम देश, समाज और अपने नेटवर्क की ताकत के संकल्प के साथ इस पूजा का शुभारंभ कर रहे हैं। आपको देश की जो विविधता है, यह देश इतना विविध है, उसके दर्शन इस पंडाल में होंगे। सभी देशों के, सभी प्रांतों के रहन सहन और खान पान का यहाँ इंतजाम है।
There on your screens, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh also was a part of the TV9's Festival of India, which has entered day 4 today. There, Rajnath Singh also now a part of TV9's Festival of India. He was gracious enough to visit Major Dhyan Chand Stadium, and there he also offered pujas. And right behind him is MD and CEO of TV9, Barun Das. TV9 Festival of India has entered day 4. And Defence Minister Rajnath Singh was part of the festivities. There on your screens, former Indian cricketer and BJP MP Gautam Gambhir too visited Major Dhyan Chand Stadium to offer prayers to Ma Durga on the given that the TV9 Festival of India is currently underway and Durga Puja is being conducted with the tallest murti. These are in fact Durga Puja live darshan with tallest murti. 20 plus live performances and artisans from across India. The TV9 Festival of India will go on till the 24th of October. You can visit the Major Dhyan Chand's National Stadium located near India Gate during these days starting from 10 a.m. Tomorrow in fact is the last day. We have free entry and ample parking for you all. Well, that's all we have in this edition of the Bulletin. For all of you, thank you very much for joining in. Have a great day ahead.
इंजीनियरिंग कर रहे हैं, जो कि सभी लोग कर रहे हैं।